The massive trading station called Nexus Prime floated in space like a giant metal city. Ships from dozens of worlds docked at its many ports. Humans walked beside tall elves and scaled reptilian aliens called saurians. The air smelled of exotic spices and engine fuel. Lirele, Moon Whisper, sat in the corner of the busy cantina. Her long silver hair marked her as elven nobility. Her green eyes watched every person who entered. She wore simple clothes, but anyone who looked closely could see the expensive fabric and hidden weapons. The message crystal in her hand still glowed red. She had read it 3 times, but the words never changed. Her father was accused of treason. Admiral Voss Blackthorn claimed he sold military secrets to enemies. The evidence looked real, but Lirele knew it was fake. Under ancient elven law, she had 72 hours to marry. Only then could she claim her family rank and fortune. Without them she could not help her father or stop Blackthorn from taking control of the elven fleet. Blackthorn had been smart. Every eligible elven male had suddenly found reasons to leave the station. Some got emergency orders, others received threats. A few simply vanished. Her cousin Princess Kira sent word that the same thing happened on the homeworld. Lirele needed a husband who was not elven. The law allowed it, but her people would be shocked. She did not care about scandal. She cared about justice. The cantina doors slid open. 3 large saurian males entered. Their scales were brown, and their eyes were cold. They looked around the room like predators hunting prey. Behind them walked a small human woman with fear in her eyes. The saurians pushed the woman toward an empty table. One grabbed her arm hard enough to leave marks. She tried to pull away, but he was too strong. Most people in the cantina looked away. Slavery was illegal on Nexus Prime, but everyone knew it still happened. The station security was paid to ignore certain crimes. A man at the bar stood up slowly. He was human with brown hair and dark eyes. His clothes were simple but clean. When he moved, Lirele noticed he walked like a soldier. His hand rested near a weapon on his belt. The human walked over to the saurian's table. He did not hurry. He did not look angry. He just walked with quiet purpose. The biggest saurian looked up at him with yellow eyes full of hate. The reptilian alien was twice the human size. His claws could tear metal. His jaw could crush bone. The human spoke in a calm voice that carried across the room despite the noise around them. "You will let the woman go now." The saurian laughed. It sounded like rocks grinding together. "Why should I listen to a tiny human?" "Because I asked nicely." The alien stood up to his full height. His head almost touched the ceiling. The other 2 saurians also stood. They thought 3 against 1 was easy odds. The human did not move back. He did not reach for his weapon. He just stood there looking at them with those dark eyes. Lyra found herself leaning forward. Most humans would have run or called for help. This one stayed calm, like he faced giant reptiles every day. The first saurian swung a clawed fist at the human head. The man ducked under it and hit the alien in the stomach. The punch looked simple, but the saurian doubled over in pain. The second alien tried to grab the human from behind. The man spun around and kicked the saurian in the knee. There was a crack of breaking bone. The alien fell to the floor. The third saurian was smarter. He pulled out an energy weapon and pointed it at the human. But the man had already moved. He grabbed a bottle from a nearby table and threw it. The bottle hit the alien in the face. While the saurian was blinded, the human took his weapon away. The fight was over in less than 30 seconds. 3 large predators lay on the floor. The human had not even drawn his own weapon. He helped the woman stand up. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. Her voice was small and scared. "They said they owned me. They had papers." The human looked at the fake documents on the table. "These are not real. You are free." The woman started to cry with relief. She thanked him over and over before running toward the station security office. The human did not watch her go. He checked on each Saurian to make sure they were not seriously injured. Even though they had tried to hurt him, he did not want them to die. Lirelei stood up and walked over to him. That was well done. He looked at her with those dark eyes. She could see intelligence there, and something else. A cold anger that never went away. They were bullies. I do not like bullies. His voice had an accent she could not place. Human worlds all sounded different, but there was something military about the way he spoke. I am Lirelei, and you are Jake Morrison, captain of the Iron Wolf. A mercenary then. That explained the weapons and the fighting skills, but most mercenaries fought for money. This man seemed to fight for other reasons. The Saurians were starting to wake up. Station security would arrive soon and ask questions. Neither Jake nor Lirelei wanted to deal with that. We should leave, Lirelei said. Jake nodded. He walked back to the bar and left money for his drink. Then he followed her out of the cantina. The station corridors were always busy. Traders and travelers moved in all directions. No one paid attention to one human and one elf walking together. Lirelei led him to a quieter section near the docking bays. Here they could talk without being overheard. I have a job offer for you, Captain Morrison. Jake studied her face. He could tell she was nobility from the way she carried herself. But there was something desperate in her green eyes. What kind of job? The kind that pays very well but might get you killed. Jake almost smiled. Most of my jobs are like that. What do you need? A husband. Now Jake did look surprised. He had expected her to ask him to transport cargo or fight in some corporate war. Marriage was not usually part of mercenary contracts. I need to be married within 72 hours. The marriage only needs to last 3 days. After that we can divorce and never see each other again. Why me? Because you are not elven. Because you can fight. And because I think you are the kind of man who keeps his word. Jake considered this. Strange jobs usually meant good pay, but also big trouble. This elven woman was clearly running from something. What are you not telling me? Everything. But I will explain if you agree to help. What do I get besides money? Information about who really ordered the death of your unit 2 years ago. Jake went very still. His dark eyes became even colder. How do you know about that? I know many things, Captain. The question is whether you want to learn the truth or keep wondering for the rest of your life. Jake was quiet for a long moment. Lirelei could see him thinking. She knew she was taking a big risk. If he said no, she would have to find someone else quickly. Finally he spoke. What do you need me to do? Marry me. Tomorrow morning. Station chapel. Simple ceremony. After that, we go to my ship and leave this place. And in return, you tell me who killed my men. I tell you everything. Who gave the order, why they did it, and how we can make them pay. Jake studied her face again. He was good at reading people. This elven woman was desperate, but she was not lying. She really did have information about his past. The death of his unit was like a wound that never healed. He had tried to find answers for 2 years. Every lead had gone nowhere. Every contact had vanished or died. If this stranger could give him the truth, it was worth almost any risk. Done all right. I will marry you. Lirelei felt relief wash over her. She had gambled everything on this human stranger. So far he seemed like the right choice. Meet me at the chapel tomorrow at 1000 hours. Bring a witness if you have one. Jake nodded. I have someone? Then it is settled. Tomorrow, we become husband and wife. 3 days later, we become strangers again. She started to walk away, but Jake called after her. Lady Lirelei, why should I trust you? She turned back to look at him. Because Captain Morrison, we both want the same thing. Justice for the people who betrayed us. Then she disappeared into the crowd, leaving Jake alone with his thoughts. He had made many dangerous deals in his life as a mercenary. But this felt different. Tomorrow, he would marry a stranger. In 3 Days he might have answers to questions that haunted his dreams. Or he might be dead. Either way it had to be. Better than wondering for the rest of his life. The chapel on Nexus Prime served all faiths and species. The walls showed symbols from dozens of worlds. Humans prayed beside elves, who meditated next to Sorions, who performed ritual dances. Jake arrived early, wearing his best clothes. They were still military style but clean and pressed. Captain Maya Torres walked beside him. She commanded the starship Starhawk, and had been his friend for 3 years. Maya was a small woman, with black hair and smart eyes. She asked no questions about the strange wedding, but Jake knew she was curious. Lirelei entered exactly on time. She wore a simple white dress that made her silver hair shine. Her green eyes found Jake immediately. She walked toward him with the grace of someone born to nobility. Behind her came a tall man, in official robes. He would perform the ceremony, according to station law. The wedding would be legal across all human and elven territories. The ceremony was brief. Ancient words were spoken. Rings were exchanged. Jake found himself looking into Lirelei's green eyes as she promised to honor and protect him. He made the same promise back. When it was over, they were married. Maya signed as witness along with the chapel keeper. The documents were filed in the station records. Captain and Lady Morrison walked out of the chapel as husband and wife. Maya hugged them both and wished them luck. She promised to keep Jake's ship Iron Wolf safe while he was gone. Then she left. Them alone, Lirelei led Jake through the station to the elven docking section. Her ship was called Silverwing. It was beautiful and deadly, like most elven vessels. The hull was mirror bright, and the weapons were hidden but powerful. Inside the ship everything was elegant and efficient. The walls were white metal decorated with silver patterns. The air smelled of flowers from her homeworld. Jake had been on elven ships before, but never one owned by nobility. Everything was perfectly made and very expensive. The captain chairs were more comfortable than most beds. Lirelei sat at the pilot station and began the departure sequence. Her hands moved over the controls like she was playing music. The ship lifted away from Nexus Prime, smooth as a bird. When they were in open space, she set the autopilot and turned to face Jake. Now I will tell you what you want to know. She activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air between them. Jake saw his old unit and the mission that had gone wrong. Your men discovered weapons being smuggled to pirate groups. The weapons were supposed to help them raid shipping lanes, but they were really meant to start a war between humans and Saurians. Jake studied the images. He recognized some of the faces, but others were new to him. Who ordered the attack on my unit? Colonel Beth Warren. She was working with Admiral Voss, Blackthorn, and others. They needed your men dead before they could report what they found. Jake felt cold anger fill his chest. Warren had been his commanding officer. She had sent them on the mission. She had known it was a trap. Warren is dead. She died in a transport crash 6 months ago. The crash was arranged. Blackthorn does not leave loose ends, so the Admiral killed her too. Everyone who knew about the conspiracy is dead, except me. That is why he wants me captured or killed. Jake was quiet for several minutes. Finally he spoke. What is Blackthorn planning? Now. The same thing. Start a war between species. Sell weapons to both sides. Make huge profits, while millions die. The display showed star charts and shipping routes. Jake could see the pattern. Attacks were happening near the borders between human and Saurian space. Each side blamed the other. My marriage to you stopped him from taking control of the elven fleet. But he will find other ways. What do we do now? We gather evidence. We expose the conspiracy. We stop a war. Jake looked at his new wife. She was beautiful and intelligent and apparently very dangerous. He was starting to understand why Blackthorn wanted her dead. The ship's sensors began to beep. Lirelei quickly checked the readings. Her face went pale. What is it? Saurian battleship. Military class. Coming toward us fast. Jake moved to the weapons console. Can we fight them? Not. And win. That ship carries enough firepower to destroy a city. The battleship was huge and built for war. Its hull was armored, and its weapons were designed to crack planets. The Silver Wing was fast, but not fast enough to outrun military engines. Incoming transmission. Lirelei activated the communications system. The screen showed a Saurian female in military uniform. Her scales were emerald green, and her eyes were golden. She was beautiful in the way that predators were beautiful. I am Commander Zara Vex of the Imperial Navy. You will surrender immediately, or be destroyed. Jake had heard of Commander Vex. She was famous for never losing a battle. Her ship had destroyed pirate fleets and rebel strongholds. She was honorable, but ruthless. On what authority? Lirelei demanded. By order of Admiral Blackthorn. Lady Morrison is wanted for treason against the elven people. Jake noticed that. Zara looked uncomfortable when she said Blackthorn name. Something was wrong, but he could not tell what. I am a married human citizen now. Elven law has no power over me. Your marriage is a fraud designed to escape justice. Surrender now, and you will be treated fairly. Lirelei looked at Jake. He could see her thinking quickly. They needed time to plan, but they were outgunned and trapped. We need 10 minutes to prepare, Lirelei said. My husband wants to pack some personal items. Zara nodded. 10 minutes. Then you come aboard my ship. The transmission ended. Lirelei immediately began working at the navigation console. What are you doing? Looking for options. There is an asteroid field nearby. If we can reach it, we might be able to hide. Jake studied the tactical display. The asteroids were small, but numerous. A skilled pilot might be able to use them as cover. Can you fly us through that field? I can. Try. Jake made a decision. Do it. I would rather die free than live as a prisoner. Lirelei smiled. It was the first real smile he had seen from her. I think I married the right human. She pushed the engines to maximum power. The Silver Wing shot forward toward the asteroid field. Behind them, the Saurian battleship began to pursue. Commander Vex's voice came over the radio again. This is foolish. You cannot escape. Jake activated the communications system. Maybe not, but we can try. Zara looked directly at him through the screen. You are the human she married. Why do you risk your life for someone you barely know? Because she is my wife, and because I do not surrender to bullies. Something changed in Zara's expression. Jake had called her people bullies. Most humans would have been afraid to insult a Saurian. Commander. But Jake spoke like he meant every word. You have courage, human. I respect that. But courage without wisdom is just stupidity. Then teach me wisdom, Commander. Stop running. Come aboard my ship. Answer my questions. If you are innocent, you have nothing to fear. Jake looked at Lirelei. She was flying them between asteroids the size of buildings. The Saurian ship was having trouble following them through the narrow spaces. And if we are guilty, then you face justice according to the law. Whose law? Yours, or Blackthorn. Zara was quiet for a moment. Finally she spoke. The law is the law. I do not make it. I only enforce it. But Jake could see doubt in her golden eyes. She was starting to wonder why an elven admiral cared so much about one woman. The chase continued through the asteroid field. Lirelei flew like she was born in space. She used every piece of cover and every trick she knew, but the battleship was closing in. Finally they reached the other side of the field. Open space stretched ahead of them. They had nowhere left to hide. End of the road, Zara announced. Surrender now, or I will disable your ship. Lirelei looked at Jake. We tried. Yes, we did, and I do not regret it. She smiled again. Neither do I, husband. They prepared to surrender, but Jake was already thinking about their next move. This was not over. It was just beginning. The Saurian battleship moved alongside the Silver Wing. Docking tubes extended between the ships. Soon they would be prisoners. But Jake had learned something important. Commander Zara Vex was honorable. She followed the law even when she did not like it. That might be useful later, if they lived long enough to use it. The Saurian battleship was a fortress in space. Its corridors were wide and tall, built for 7-foot reptilian warriors. The walls were dark metal decorated with weapons and battle honors. Jake and Lirelei walked between 4 guards toward the commander quarters. Their hands were bound, but they were not mistreated. Saurian warriors respected courage even in enemies. Commander Zaravek's office was simple but impressive. Battle flags hung from the walls. Her desk was made from the armor of a defeated enemy ship. Everything spoke of victory and honor. Zara sat behind her desk studying data files. Her emerald scales caught the light as she moved. When Jake and Lirelei entered, she gestured for them to sit. The guards remained, but stepped back to give them privacy. Lady Morrison, or, should I say, Lady Moonwhisper, you are accused of serious crimes. What crimes specifically? Lirelei kept her voice calm and proud. Treason, theft of military secrets, conspiracy against the Elven state. All false. Created by Admiral Blackthorn to justify seizing my family assets. Zara activated a holographic display. Documents appeared in the air showing bank accounts and secret communications. The evidence seems real enough. Jake studied the documents carefully. He had seen forged intelligence before. These files were very good, but not perfect. When were these communications sent? He asked. Zara checked the dates. Over the past 6 months, Jake pointed to one message. This one claims Lady Moonwhisper was on the planet Zarian 3 months ago. But I have dock records showing her ship never left Nexus Prime during that entire month. How do you know this? Because I make it my business to know who is on the station, especially beautiful elven women with expensive ships. Lirelei looked at him with surprise. You were watching me. I watch everyone who might be dangerous. You definitely qualify. Zara studied the documents more carefully. She began to notice other problems. Dates that did not match. Communications from places Lirelei's ship had never visited. These files have been altered, she said slowly, very skillfully, but yes. Jake agreed. Someone wanted to make Lady Moonwhisper look guilty. Zara leaned back in her chair. Her golden eyes were troubled. Why would Admiral Blackthorn create false evidence? Lirelei spoke carefully. Because the real traitor is him. He is working with others to start a war between humans and Saurians. That is a serious accusation. I have proof. On my ship, Zara considered this. She could order them to retrieve the files. But if they were telling the truth, then she was helping to cover up a massive conspiracy. If you are lying, you will both die slowly. We understand, Jake said. But we are not lying. Zara made her decision. She spoke to her guards in the Saurian language. They left the room, but remained outside the door. Show me your proof. Lirelei activated her personal communicator. The device projected holographic files into the air. Financial records appeared, showing money flowing between Elven and human accounts. Jake recognized some of the names. They were arms dealers and mercenary commanders, people who profited from war and chaos. Admiral Blackthorn has been organizing attacks on both human and Saurian ships. Each side blames the other. Tensions increase. Both sides buy more weapons. Zara studied the financial records. The amounts were huge. Enough money to buy fleets of warships or entire planets. Who else is involved? Lirelei displayed more files. Corrupt officials from multiple worlds appeared. Some were human, some were elven. A few were from other species. Jake noticed something important. No Saurians were listed among the conspirators. Your people are not part of this, he told Zara. You are being used. Zara's expression darkened. The idea that her proud warrior race was being manipulated angered her greatly. used. How Blackthorn promised you elven technology in exchange for capturing Lady Moonwhisper, but he never intended to honor that deal. More files appeared, showing communications between Blackthorn and unknown parties. The messages talked about eliminating Saurian commanders. Who knew too much? Zara's name was on the elimination list. The commander stood up slowly. Her clawed hands gripped the edge of her desk, hard enough to leave marks in the metal. He planned to have me killed after you captured me, Lirelei confirmed. You know too much about his methods. Zara began pacing around the room. Her warrior training told her to be suspicious of enemies bearing gifts, but the evidence was very convincing. Jake watched her carefully. He could see the moment when she made her decision. Her golden eyes became hard and cold. If this is true, then I have been dishonored. My ship, my crew, my people, we have all been used as tools by this elven criminal. She activated her communication system and spoke rapidly in Saurian. Jake could not understand the words, but the tone was clear. She was giving orders. What did you tell them? Lirelei asked. I told my officers to investigate these claims. I told them to prepare for combat if necessary. Against who? Against anyone who has dishonored us, including Admiral Blackthorn. The ship communication system began broadcasting alerts. All over the battleship, Saurian warriors were arming themselves and preparing for battle. Jake felt a moment of satisfaction. Blackthorn had made a critical error. He had tried to use Saurian honor as a weapon. Instead, he had turned it against himself. Commander, Jake said, we need to return to Nexus Prime. There are more people there who can help expose this conspiracy. Zara nodded. We will go together. My ship will protect yours. She paused and looked directly at both of them. But know this. If you have deceived me, I will personally tear you both apart with my bare claws. Understood, Lirelei replied calmly. They were escorted back to the Silver Wing, under heavy guard. But now the guards were there to protect them, not imprison them. As they prepared to leave Zara's ship, Jake realized something important had happened. They had gained a powerful ally, but they had also made the conspiracy much more dangerous. Blackthorn would not give up easily. He had too much money and power at stake. When he learned that Commander Vex had switched sides, he would become desperate. Desperate people did terrible things. The journey back to Nexus Prime took 6 hours. During that time, Lirelei worked with Zara intelligence officers to analyze the conspiracy files. They found connections to dozens of criminal organizations. Jake spent the time planning. They needed to expose the truth before Blackthorn could silence them permanently. That meant gathering more evidence and finding people who would listen. Most importantly, they needed to stay alive long enough to matter. When Nexus Prime appeared on their sensors, Jake felt both relief and worry. The station was neutral territory, where they could find help, but it was also where their enemies would be waiting. Zara's voice came over the communication system. Sensors detect multiple ships in the area. Some are elven military vessels. Jake looked at the tactical display. At least 12 ships surrounded the station. More were arriving every hour. Blackthorn is here, Lirelei said grimly. Then we finish this now, Zara replied. One way or another, the Silver Wing and the Saurian battleship approached the station together. They were no longer hunter and prey. They were allies united by a common enemy. But Jake knew the real fight was just beginning. Blackthorn had brought a fleet. He was not planning to arrest anyone. He was planning to destroy them all. Admiral Voss' Blackthorn fleet surrounded Nexus Prime like a metal trap. 12 elven warships hung in space with weapons powered and shields raised. They were beautiful and deadly, with hulls that gleamed like mirrors. The station emergency broadcasts warned all civilian ships to stay clear. Dock workers scrambled to secure cargo and passengers. Everyone knew that when military fleets gathered, people usually died. Jake stood on the bridge of the Silver Wing watching the tactical display. Beside him, Lirelei worked at the communication station, trying to contact allies on the station. Commander Zara's voice came from the Saurian battleship. They are demanding we surrender immediately. Jake activated the communication system. What did you tell them? That they can go mate with a diseased swamp crawler. Despite everything, Jake almost smiled. Saurian insults were always colorful. The Silver Wing and Zara battleship moved closer to the station. They were outnumbered, but not outgunned. The Saurian ship carried enough firepower to match 3 elven vessels. Incoming transmission, Lireley announced. The main screen showed Admiral Blackthorn sitting in his command chair. He was tall and pale, with silver hair and cold blue eyes. His uniform was perfect, and his expression was arrogant. Lady Moon whispered, "You have caused enough trouble. Surrender now, and your death will be quick." Jake stepped into view of the camera. "She is Lady Morrison now, and she is under my protection." Blackthorn looked at Jake with obvious contempt. A human mercenary. How fitting. She always preferred the company of lower species. Jake felt his anger rise, but kept his voice calm. "Lower species? Is that what you call the people you have been murdering?" "I have no idea what you mean." Lireley activated her holographic display. The conspiracy files appeared on the transmission for everyone to see. Financial records, communication logs, assassination orders. Everything you have done to start this war. Blackthorn's face went pale as he recognized the documents. Some of them were supposed to be destroyed. Others were so secret that only a few people knew they existed. "Where did you get those files? From your own personal computer? You should use better security codes." Jake watched Blackthorn's expression change from arrogance to fear to rage. The Admiral realized he had been completely exposed. It does not matter. No one will believe the word of a traitor and her alien pets. But other people were listening to the transmission. Station security, elven officers on other ships, representatives from dozens of worlds. Commander Zara's voice cut through the static. "I believe them, Admiral, because you tried to have me killed too." The Saurian battleship moved between the Silver Wing and the Elven fleet. It was a clear statement of alliance. Blackthorn's face twisted with hate. "You stupid reptile. You have doomed your own people. My people value honor above profit. Something you would not understand." The communication ended abruptly. Jake knew that Blackthorn was done talking. Now he would try to solve his problem with violence. "All ships prepare for combat," Jake announced over the station-wide emergency channel. "Admiral Blackthorn is a traitor who will kill anyone to protect his secrets." The Elven fleet began to spread out in attack formation. But something strange happened. 3 of the ships broke away from the others and moved toward the station. "Incoming transmission," Lireley said. The screen showed a young Elven captain with honest eyes and clean uniform. "I am Captain Lisa Park of the starship Moonbeam. Admiral Blackthorn, you are relieved of command pending investigation of these charges." 2 other captains appeared on the screen beside her. They nodded agreement. Blackthorn's voice roared from the fleet communication channel. "I am your superior officer. You will obey my orders or face court-martial." Captain Park replied calmly. "My oath is to serve the Elven people, not corrupt individuals. These documents prove you are a traitor." Jake felt hope rising in his chest. Not all of the Elven officers were following Blackthorn blindly. Some still believed in duty and honor, but 9 ships remained loyal to the Admiral. That was still enough firepower to destroy the station and everyone on it. The battle began without warning. Blackthorn remaining ships opened fire on Captain Park vessels. Energy beams and missile trails lit up space like deadly fireworks. Commander Zara battleship moved to help the loyal Elven captains. Her heavy weapons tore into the traitor ships with devastating effect. Jake took control of the Silver Wing weapon systems. The ship was small, but fast. He used its speed to strike at enemy vessels, then escape before they could return fire. Lireley coordinated their attacks with station defense systems. Nexus Prime had its own weapons designed to protect against pirates and raiders. The space around the station became a chaotic battlefield. Ships twisted and turned, trying to get clear shots at their enemies. Explosions bloomed like flowers made of fire and metal. Jake found himself facing a ship he recognized. The elven cruiser Nightfall was commanded by Colonel Alex Turner. Turner had been one of Blackthorn's most trusted officers. The Nightfall was twice the size of the Silverwing and heavily armed. But Jake had advantages too. He knew how elven ships fought, and he was angry about what happened to his unit. The two ships danced around each other, firing energy beams and missiles. Jake used every trick he had learned in years of combat. He flew through the station's superstructure using the metal beams as cover. Turner was a good pilot, but he fought by the rules. Jake fought to win. Finally, the Silverwing got behind the Nightfall and fired at its engine section. The larger ship lost power and began to drift helplessly. Jake opened a communication channel. "Colonel Turner, your ship is disabled. Surrender now." Turner appeared on the screen. His face was bloody from where he had hit the console during combat. "You fight well for a human, but this is not over." "Actually it is," Jake replied. "Look around you." Turner checked his tactical display. Most of Blackthorn's fleet was destroyed or disabled. Only 3 ships were still fighting, and they were badly damaged. Commander Zara had shown why Saurians were feared throughout the galaxy. Her battleship had taken on 5 enemy vessels and destroyed them all. Captain Park and her allies had fought bravely, despite being outnumbered. They had protected the station and saved thousands of lives. But the most important victory was not military, it was political. The evidence of Blackthorn conspiracy was being broadcast across the galaxy. Every major government was receiving copies of the files. The truth could not be hidden or denied. Admiral Blackthorn's own voice came over the emergency channel. "All remaining ships retreat immediately. We will regroup at Rally Point 7. But his surviving captains were no longer listening to him. One by one they surrendered, rather than continue fighting for a traitor. Finally, only Blackthorn flagship remained. The massive battleship was damaged, but still dangerous. It could destroy the station if the Admiral decided to go down fighting. Jake opened the communication channel to Blackthorn's ship. "Admiral, you have lost. Surrender and face justice." Blackthorn appeared on the screen. His perfect uniform was torn and dirty. His arrogant expression had been replaced by desperate rage. "I will not surrender to aliens and terrorists. If I cannot have victory, I will have revenge." The Admiral's ship began charging its main weapons. The massive energy cannon could crack a planet. At close range it would vaporize Nexus Prime. But Jake had expected this. He had been moving the Silverwing into position during the entire conversation. The small elven ship struck Blackthorn flagship like an arrow hitting a giant. Jake rammed his vessel directly into the enemy weapon systems. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire and metal that lit up space for 1,000,000 miles. Lirelei screamed Jake's name as she watched the explosion. But the communication system was dead. She could not tell if he had survived. For long minutes, there was only silence and drifting debris. Then a small escape pod appeared on the sensors. Its emergency beacon was broadcasting Jake identification codes. Commander Zara dispatched a rescue shuttle immediately. When they brought Jake aboard, he was unconscious but alive. Lirelei held his hand as the medical team worked on him. She had married a stranger 3 days ago. Now she realized she might love him. The battle was over. The conspiracy was exposed. Justice had been served, but the cost had been higher than anyone expected. 3 months after the battle, Jake stood in the medical bay of Nexus Prime, watching the news broadcasts. His left arm was still in a healing cast from the explosion, but otherwise he had recovered completely. The holographic displays showed trials taking place across the galaxy. Corrupt officials were being arrested on dozens of worlds. The conspiracy that Blackthorn had built was falling apart, piece by piece. Lirelei entered the medical bay carrying 2 cups of coffee. She had spent the morning giving testimony to investigators from the Elven government. Her father had been cleared of all charges and restored to his position. "How did it go?" Jake asked. "They want me to return home and take over the family military unit. Full honors and a promotion to general." "That is good news." She sat beside him on the medical bed. "Yes, but I turned them down." Jake looked surprised. "Why would you refuse such an honor?" "Because I have found something more important than military rank." She took his hand with her free one. Their wedding rings caught the light from the medical equipment. Jake studied her face. Over the past 3 months, their relationship had changed from a business arrangement to something deeper. But he had not been sure how she felt about it. "What have you found?" "A cause worth fighting for, and a partner worth fighting beside." She activated a holographic display that showed star charts and shipping routes. Pirates and slavers were still operating in the outer systems. Corrupt officials were trying to rebuild their criminal networks. The governments are focused on the big trials, but the small criminals are being ignored. People are still suffering, while everyone celebrates our victory. Jake nodded. He had seen the same reports. Justice for the powerful did not always mean justice for the weak. "What are you suggesting? That we form our own organization? Hunt down the criminals that the official forces miss? Help people who have nowhere else to turn?" "It sounds dangerous and expensive, and probably illegal in most places." Lirelei smiled. The first real smile he had seen since the battle. "I know several very wealthy people who would be happy to fund such an organization, including my own family." Jake was quiet for several minutes thinking about the proposal. He had been a soldier and then a mercenary. Both jobs had rules and orders from other people. This would be different. "What about Commander Zara? Does she know about this plan?" She suggested it. "The Saurian government wants to promote her, but she is tired of politics. She wants to fight real enemies, not attend diplomatic meetings," as if summoned by her name. Zara entered the medical bay. The tall reptilian warrior had to duck to fit through the doorway. "Built for smaller species. Human Jake. How are your injuries healing?" "Well enough, Commander. Lirelei tells me you want to start a private war against criminals." "Not a war. A hunt. My people have always been hunters. We hunt prey that threatens the weak or innocent." Jake looked at both women. One was elegant elven nobility, with intelligence networks spanning the galaxy. The other was a Saurian warrior with a battleship and crew loyal to her personally. Both were asking him to help them fight injustice across known space. "What would I bring to this partnership? I have no ship, no money, no political connections." Zara laughed. It sounded like rocks tumbling in a river. "You have the one thing we need most human. You know how to win impossible battles." Lirelei nodded agreement. "You defeated Blackthorn when everyone said it could not be done. You united 3 species against a common enemy. You are a natural leader whether you realize it or not." Jake considered their words. He had always thought of himself as a simple soldier following orders. But maybe they were right. Maybe he was something more. "Where would we operate from? What would we call ourselves? How would people find us when they need help?" "We have been thinking about that." Lirelei activated another display, showing a refitted cargo ship. It was large enough to carry fighters and small patrol vessels. The cargo bays had been converted to living quarters and workshops. This ship used to transport freight between systems. Now it can be our mobile base of operations. We can go wherever we are needed most. Jake studied the ship's specifications. It was not military quality, but it was sturdy and reliable. With the right modifications, it could serve their needs. "What about a name?" Zara spoke up. "In my language, we have a word, Kashari. It means those who hunt the hunters, predators who prey on other predators." Jake liked the sound of that. The Kashari, hunters of the unjust. Over the next few weeks, they prepared for their first mission. The ship was purchased and refitted with weapons and equipment. A crew was assembled from volunteers who believed in their cause. Captain Maya Torres joined them, along with several other human pilots. A group of young elven technicians volunteered to handle communications and intelligence gathering. Even a few Saurian warriors requested transfers to serve under Commander Zara. Their first target was a slave trading network operating near the Rim worlds. The criminals had been buying children from desperate families and selling them to mining companies. Local governments knew about the problem, but lacked the resources to stop it. The Kashari had both resources and determination. Jake stood on the bridge of their new ship as it approached the target system. Lirelei worked at the intelligence station gathering information about enemy ships and bases. Zara commanded the fighter squadrons that would carry out the actual attacks. It felt right to Jake. For the first time in years, he was fighting for something he completely believed in, not for money, or orders, or politics, but for people who needed help and had nowhere else to turn. The mission was a complete success. The slave traders were captured or scattered. The children were rescued and returned to their families. Local law enforcement was given evidence to prevent the network from reforming. Most importantly, word spread that the Kashari were active. People began sending them messages asking for help with problems their own governments could not, or would not, solve. Pirates threatening peaceful colonies. Corrupt officials stealing relief supplies meant for disaster victims. Criminal organizations that had bought protection from local law enforcement. Each mission was different, but the goal was always the same: protect the innocent and punish those who preyed on the weak. Jake found himself changing as the months passed. He was still a warrior, but he was also becoming something more. A leader who inspired others to fight for justice. A symbol of hope for people who had lost faith in their governments. His relationship with Lirelei also continued to grow. What had started as a marriage of convenience had become a true partnership in every sense. They worked together perfectly, both in combat and in planning their missions. One evening as their ship traveled between assignments, Jake found Lirelei on the observation deck looking out at the stars. She seemed thoughtful and slightly sad. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "Our wedding day. How desperate we both were. How little we knew about each other." Jake sat beside her and took her hand. "Do you regret it?" "No. But sometimes, I wonder what would have happened if we had met under different circumstances." Jake considered the question. "We probably would have been too proud to admit we needed each other. Sometimes desperation leads us to the right choices for the wrong reasons." She smiled and leaned against his shoulder. "I love you, Jake Morrison. Not because you saved me from Blackthorn, but because you showed me what it means to fight for something bigger than yourself. I love you too, and I am grateful every day that you chose me to be your fake husband." Sat in comfortable silence watching the stars turn slowly past the viewport. Somewhere out there people were suffering who needed their help. Somewhere else criminals were planning new schemes that needed to be stopped. But for this moment, they were content to be together. Two warriors who had found love in the middle of war. Three species united by shared values of honor and justice. "Commander." Zara's voice came over the communication system, interrupting their peaceful moment. "Captain Jake, Lady Lirelei, we have received a priority message from the Outer Rim. An entire colony has gone silent. Local authorities suspect raiders, or worse, Jake." And Lirelei looked at each other. Their brief rest was over. People needed help, and the Kashari would answer the call. They had found their purpose in life. Fighting injustice wherever it existed. Protecting those who could not protect themselves. Building a better galaxy one mission at a time. It was not the life either of them had planned, but it was exactly the life they both needed. The ship changed course toward the Outer Rim and another adventure. Behind them, the stars held their secrets. Ahead of them lay new challenges and new opportunities to make a difference. Jake Morrison had started as a soldier seeking revenge for his fallen comrades. He had become a leader fighting for justice across the galaxy. Lirelei had started as a desperate woman, trying to save her family honor. She had become a symbol of hope for the oppressed and forgotten. Together with their unlikely allies, they had become something greater than the sum of their parts. They had become the Kashari, and the galaxy was a safer place because of them.